My last transmission came from the northern border, near Mount Paektu. They told me to observe, not to interfere. But the mountain, it wasn't sleeping. Something was moving beneath it, something the soldiers were terrified of. I thought I was sent to spy on a weapon. I was wrong. I think the weapon found us. They called me Daniel Rains, though that name never appeared in any official record. My real identity was buried long before this mission began. In the files, I was listed as a civilian contractor specializing in geological reconnaissance. In truth, I was a spy, an observer for a joint intelligence division whose existence no one would admit. The briefing took place inside a soundproofed room deep beneath an unmarked building in Seoul. No windows, just fluorescent light humming overhead and a map of the Korean peninsula pinned to the wall. My handler, a gray-haired analyst named Cooper, tapped the map with a pen. His voice was flat, professional, almost bored. "Mount Paektu," he said. "Seismic activity's been off the charts, but satellites show construction, underground grids, thermal signatures. None of it matches mining operations." He slid a folder across the table. Black and white photos spilled out. Convoys of trucks disappearing into snow-covered roads, exhaust steaming against a backdrop of pine. One image froze me. A vast metallic gate carved directly into the mountain's rock face, guarded by soldiers in full winter gear. Someone had tried to erase the photo's metadata, but our analysts recovered enough to know it was recent. "What's the objective?" I asked. "Intel wants confirmation. Whatever they're building under Paektu, it's pulling power from half the northern grid. Officially, it's a hydrogeological research station. Unofficially," Cooper paused, his eyes narrowing, "we don't know." There were whispers in the community, rumors of old Soviet tunnels beneath Paektu, Cold War experiments, even nuclear facilities disguised as caves. But something in Cooper's tone told me this was different. He slid over a small recorder, its metal surface scratched and worn. "Last transmission from a previous field agent. Listen." He pressed play. Static filled the room, then a faint, trembling voice broke through. "Not a mine. Not natural. The walls. Listen." A low rumble swallowed the words, followed by a sound I can only describe as breathing. Deep, resonant, inhuman. The tape cut off there. Cooper shut it off and leaned forward. "Your cover identity's ready. You'll pose as a seismic engineer from a Russian subcontractor. The ministry approved a limited exchange program, rare opportunity. You'll have access to the outer facility." "What happens if they discover me?" He gave the kind of smile that wasn't a smile at all. "Then you won't have to worry about retirement paperwork." I signed the documents without hesitation. Years of training had dulled the fear into routine. But as I walked out of that room, the air felt heavier, as though I had stepped into a story already written, and my part couldn't change its ending. The next morning, I was flown to Vladivostok under diplomatic clearance, then taken by convoy toward the border. The landscape grew emptier with every mile. Mountains like frozen waves, forests buried under snow. By the time we reached the checkpoint near Ryanggang province, daylight had already faded into a dull metallic dusk. North Korean officers inspected our papers with the precision of surgeons. My forged credentials passed without issue. One soldier, barely 20, lingered over my passport, studying my photo as if trying to memorize it. His expression was blank, but his eyes, they carried something between exhaustion and fear. As we drove deeper into the country, radio signals died one by one. My phone, my tracker, even the compass on my watch began flickering near Paektu's base. The locals called it the heart of ice. They said compasses misbehaved there, as if the mountain rejected navigation itself. We reached a temporary base camp built from prefabricated steel. From there, I could see the volcano's peak piercing the clouds, steam drifting from vents along its slopes. The ground vibrated faintly beneath my boots, not enough to notice unless you were listening for it. A man approached wearing a padded uniform marked with a red insignia. He introduced himself as Commander Han, head of security. His handshake was firm, his eyes assessing. "You will work with our geological division. There are areas off limits. You do not ask why." I nodded, the obedient foreign consultant. Inside, my pulse raced. Han studied me a second longer, then motioned toward the barracks. "You begin tomorrow." That night, I lay awake on a narrow cot, staring at the metal ceiling as wind howled outside. Somewhere beneath us, generators thrummed, a deep, rhythmic pulse echoing through the floor. Every few minutes, the lights flickered, as if the mountain itself exhaled. I closed my eyes, but the sound from the recorder replayed in my mind, that slow, steady breathing beneath layers of stone. And I realized Cooper had lied. The agent before me hadn't just disappeared. He was still down there.
The following morning began with silence. Thick, expectant silence that made every breath sound like a violation. The sun hadn't risen yet, just a dull gray glow behind the snow clouds. At 600 meters above sea level, even the air felt different, denser, charged, humming faintly like static beneath my skin. Commander Han met me outside the barracks. He said, "You'll be joining the survey unit," his voice clipped and cold. "Do not deviate from assigned coordinates." I nodded, clutching my field kit, a tablet, a seismic reader, and a miniature camera disguised as an instrument gauge. The cold bit into my hands, but beneath it all was the constant low vibration. The mountain was breathing again. We boarded a convoy of trucks that wound upward along frozen ridges. The soldiers said nothing. Each man's expression was identical, tight-lipped, eyes forward, as if words themselves might wake something best left sleeping. Through the frost on the window, I glimpsed the mouth of the facility, an immense tunnel carved straight into the base of Mount Paektu. Floodlights lined the entrance, cutting through the fog like blades. At the gate, we were scanned by guards wearing insulated suits and face shields. Inside, the air changed. It was warmer, metallic, and heavy with the scent of oil and ozone. The walls were reinforced steel, polished to a dull sheen. Every step echoed. We passed through 4 checkpoints, each guarded by armed soldiers. Finally, the tunnel opened into a massive central corridor, wide enough for trucks to pass through, lined with cables that disappeared into the rock. Machinery thrummed behind sealed doors. The hum of electricity blended with something else, something deeper, like the heartbeat of the mountain itself. My assigned liaison, a thin man named Dr. Cho, greeted me with a nervous half-smile. He said, "You're the foreign consultant. We study seismic flow." He led me to a workstation filled with monitors displaying thermal readings and tremor patterns, but the data made no geological sense. The readings didn't originate from tectonic movement. They pulsed in rhythmic intervals like clockwork, controlled, intentional. "What's this frequency?" I asked, pointing to a series of spikes repeating every 6 minutes. Cho hesitated. His eyes darted toward a nearby camera mounted in the corner. "It's nothing, just machinery." He swallowed hard and added in a whisper, "You shouldn't ask." He turned back to the monitors, pretending to work, but his hands were trembling. At midday, we descended to a lower section, accessible only by elevator. A soldier entered a code and inserted a key simultaneously, a double authentication system. The doors opened to reveal a cavernous chamber lit by a faint blue glow. I caught my breath. The chamber wasn't built, it was excavated. The walls were raw basalt, streaked with veins of obsidian, perfectly smooth as if melted. Pipes and cables ran along the surface, pulsing with faint luminescence. The air was warmer here, heavy with a faint vibration that settled into my bones. "This isn't natural," I muttered. Cho didn't reply. His gaze stayed fixed on the far wall, where a massive archway had been sealed by reinforced steel. Warning signs in Korean marked it as restricted, level 4 access only. Something about the seal unnerved me. The edges of the metal weren't welded cleanly, but looked like they'd been bent inward from the other side. "Who built this?" I asked. Cho's voice was barely a whisper. "Not us." Before I could question him further, Commander Han's voice echoed through the chamber. "Consultant Rains, your clearance ends here." His eyes locked on Cho, sharp and unblinking. "Dr. Cho will return you to the upper facility." As we rode the elevator up, I could feel Cho shaking beside me. When the doors opened, he slipped a small folded note into my pocket. "Read later," he muttered, then walked away quickly. That night, I waited until the lights-out curfew. The barracks were quiet, except for the distant hum beneath the floor. I unfolded the note under the dim glow of a flashlight. It read only 4 words: "Don't go to level 5." My pulse quickened. Level 4 was sealed. There was a level 5? I hid the note inside my boot and turned off the light. But as I lay there, I realized the hum beneath me wasn't constant anymore. It was changing pitch, rising, falling, like something shifting deep below the ground. And then faintly, through the walls, I heard it. A voice, not human, not machine. A low, resonant sound like words spoken underwater. Slow, deliberate, impossibly deep. I sat up, heart pounding. The mountain was speaking. Sleep was impossible after that sound. It wasn't just heard, it was felt, vibrating through my ribs like a second heartbeat. Every few minutes it returned. 3 pulses, a low pause, then another series, as if the mountain itself was trying to speak in code. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was a mechanical rhythm, maybe drills, turbines, seismic dampeners. But deep down, I knew better. At breakfast, the soldiers looked worse than I did. No one was talking. No one ate. Then, without a word, an officer entered the mess hall and handed Commander Han a folder. He opened it, scanned the contents, and his jaw tightened. Within seconds, he barked, "All personnel, sub-level inspection, now!" We moved as one, descending through the metallic throat of Mount Paektu. The elevator shuddered as it dropped past level 3, level 4, and then, without command, it kept going. The panel lights stopped counting. The soldiers stared at one another, their eyes wide. The hum grew louder, vibrating through the walls like something alive. When the doors finally opened, there was no checkpoint, no guards,
just a narrow tunnel stretching into the dark, wet, uneven, carved through living rock. It wasn't part of the Soviet architecture above. It was older, much older. Commander Hans stepped out first. "Stay close," he said, though his voice lacked its usual authority. We followed him into the passage, boots crunching over black frost. After a few meters, the metal walls gave way to pure stone, basalt, smooth and glass-like, as though something had melted its way through. Faint glyphs glimmered across the surfaces, etched patterns that pulsed softly when our lights passed over them, as if reacting to our presence. Dr. Cho whispered, "This is what they found during the first excavation, before the military took control." I turned to him. "What did they find?" He hesitated. "A structure, but not man-made. The energy readings, they don't match any known source. Commander Han thinks it's a Soviet bunker from the 50s. He's wrong." The air thickened the deeper we went. My ears popped, the pressure shifting unnaturally. My instruments went haywire, compasses spinning, signal meters flickering red. Whatever electromagnetic field surrounded this place was beyond human engineering. The tunnel opened into a colossal cavern, easily 100 meters high. At its center stood a monolithic shape rising from the rock, a perfect black column embedded halfway into the ground, its surface smooth and seamless like obsidian glass. Around it, machines hummed, cables feeding into its base, glowing faintly with red light. But it wasn't the structure that froze me. It was the sound. The same low resonance I'd heard in my quarters, now deafening, alive. Commander Hans signaled 2 soldiers forward. They approached the column cautiously, scanning it with handheld detectors. The devices overloaded instantly, sparking in their hands. The men stumbled back, clutching their ears. The column pulsed once. A deep thrum rippled through the air, followed by an ear-splitting cry, not mechanical, but biological, like a whale's cry distorted through steel. Lights flickered, the cavern trembled. Han shouted, "Fall back! Everyone back to the elevator!" But the moment we turned, the tunnel behind us sealed, not with debris. The rock shifted, smooth and deliberate, closing like a living wound. Panic erupted. Soldiers fired their rifles at the wall, the rounds sparking uselessly off the basalt. The sound barely faded before another pulse came, this one lower, more deliberate, almost curious. The black column began to move, slowly, silently. Its surface rippled like liquid, expanding, contracting, as though breathing. Then came the light, a cold white beam that cut through the darkness, scanning across us. When it passed over my face, the air temperature dropped 10 degrees in an instant. My visor fogged. I couldn't move, couldn't think. A voice echoed, but not through the air, inside my head. Not words, impressions, images. Cities beneath the ice, machines sleeping in volcanic cores, patterns of energy flowing through the earth like veins. And then one single terrifying thought pressed into my mind. It is waking. My knees buckled. I tore off my earpiece, gasping. Around me, others were doing the same, clutching their heads, screaming silently. Commander Han staggered forward, weapon drawn. "What are you?" he shouted into the void. The light turned toward him. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw a reflection. Not his face, but something older, something vast, staring back. Then the beam vanished.
The chamber fell into total darkness. Only the residual glow of our suits remained. Dr. Cho's voice trembled in the dark. "That wasn't a weapon. It's a door." And from somewhere deep within the mountain, beyond the walls, something answered. A sound like thunder. No, like footsteps, rising, echoing upward from the abyss.
For a long time, there was nothing but the sound. A deep, rhythmic pulse, the mountain's heartbeat, shaking dust from the cavern ceiling, each vibration stronger than the last. The soldiers huddled together, weapons trembling in their hands, barrels reflecting the faint red glow still leaking from the black column. Commander Han barked orders, but the words were swallowed by the hum. Even the air seemed to resist sound. Dr. Cho was on his knees, whispering in Korean. Prayers, equations, maybe both. I checked my recorder. Dead. Every device was dead. Then the floor shifted. Not an earthquake. It breathed. Cracks opened across the basalt surface, and light, pale and liquid, began to seep through. It wasn't lava. It moved against gravity, coiling upward like veins of mercury. Someone screamed. The liquid light reached one of the soldier's boots and crawled up his leg like living fire. He didn't have time to react before it consumed him entirely. No heat, no sound, just light folding into itself and erasing him. Han opened fire. Bullets hit the column, sparking harmlessly. "We're leaving!" he shouted, dragging Dr. Cho toward the sealed tunnel. But before anyone could move, the monolith split open down the middle. Not cracked, parted, like two eyelids. Inside was a vertical chamber filled with pulsing rings of light, rotating in perfect mechanical rhythm. Between the rings, something vast and translucent hung suspended, as if a creature trapped mid-motion. Its shape was impossible to focus on, as if it existed in more than 3 dimensions. Every second, its shape shifted, human, serpentine, insectoid, yet never complete. Then came the voice again. Clearer now, still inside our minds, but layered, ancient. It remembers us. Han dropped to his knees, clutching his skull. Blood streamed from his nose. The soldiers behind him fell one by one, silent, as if their minds had been switched off. I bit my tongue until I tasted blood, trying to stay conscious. Dr. Cho looked at me, tears cutting through the grime on his face. "He's not alien," he said hoarsely. "It's Earthborn. They didn't build this. They found it." "What is it?" I shouted over the rising pulse. He pointed to the monolith. The Soviets thought it was an energy source. They built the facility around it, but the more they studied it, the more they realized it wasn't dormant. It was hibernating. A deep crack echoed through the cavern as another wave of pressure hit us. The walls glowed faintly, the same glyphs from the tunnel now burning white-hot. Dr. Cho continued, voice breaking. "Mount Paektu isn't just a volcano. It's a seal. This thing, it's buried inside the caldera, and the magma chamber keeps it contained. The North Koreans," He stopped. The look on his face said everything. They're trying to wake it. The light intensified until it felt solid, pressing on our skin. Shapes began forming in the glow, silhouettes of figures, frozen mid-movement, faces distorted in silent screams. They weren't hallucinations, they were memories, echoes of people who'd been here before. Scientists, soldiers, civilians, absorbed into whatever consciousness this thing possessed. The monolith's rings accelerated, spinning so fast they blurred into a single band of light. The cavern filled with a roaring wind, though there was no source. The hum became a scream, the mountain's voice reaching a pitch that shattered my visor. I dropped to the floor, covering my ears, but the sound was inside my bones. And then, silence. I looked up. The light was gone. The monolith stood still again, black and silent, as though nothing had happened. Bodies littered the ground. Han was slumped against a wall, eyes open but empty. The other soldiers were motionless, their faces peaceful, almost serene. Only Dr. Cho and I were breathing. He turned to me, whispering, "It let us go." Before I could reply, the sealed tunnel behind us groaned and opened, not mechanically, organically, as if the mountain itself had decided to release us. We stumbled back into the corridor, half blind and shaking. The elevator shaft was dark, the power gone. We climbed, rung by rung, through the suffocating blackness until we reached the surface. When we emerged, dawn was breaking over the frozen forest. The air felt wrong, thin, electric, humming faintly beneath the wind. Dr. Cho dropped to his knees, staring up at the mountain. "It's a weight now," he said quietly, "whether they know it or not." I looked back toward the facility entrance. The steel doors were sealed shut from within, a dull glow pulsing faintly behind them, like the slow blink of something alive, watching us. That's when my radio crackled to life for the first time in hours. A voice, faint, distorted, official. "Agent Walker, do you copy? Extraction in T-20 minutes. Confirm status." I pressed the transmitter to my mouth, my hand still shaking. "This is Walker. Mission failed. Whatever's under Mount Paektu, it's not human and it's not contained." Static. Then a pause. "Understood," the voice replied. "Do not approach the mountain. Repeat, do not..." The transmission cut. And from behind the steel doors, far below the snow, came a low, distant heartbeat. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 more. The same pattern as before. But this time, it wasn't echoing through the facility. It was echoing through the entire mountain.
We were airlifted out of the Paektu region 2 hours later. No debrief, no contact, no explanation. Just 2 half-frozen men shoved into the back of an unmarked transport, the mountain shrinking behind us until it vanished beneath a wall of fog. The only sound in the cabin was the rhythmic thump of the rotors and the faint, unnatural static still leaking from our radios, the same 3-pulse pattern that hadn't stopped since we left the facility. Dr. Cho sat across from me, pale and silent, hands still trembling. His eyes never looked from the floor. "You said it's awake,"
What does that mean?" He didn't look up. "It's not like us. It doesn't move in time the way we do. That pulse, that's not communication. It's synchronization." "Synchronization with what?" He met my eyes for the first time. "With everything." Before I could answer, the pilot shouted something in Korean, panic in his voice. I turned toward the cockpit window. Mount Paektu was erupting, but it wasn't fire or ash. It was light. A white column of energy shot straight into the sky, piercing the cloud cover like a lance. Every compass in the aircraft spun wildly. Instruments blinked and died. "Radio silence!" the pilot yelled, but it was already too late. The static on our comms surged into a violent screech that drowned out the rotor noise. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 pulses. Only now, they weren't confined to the radio. They were in the air. The entire atmosphere seemed to hum with the same frequency. Mountains, trees, even the snow resonating like struck glass. Then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The column of light collapsed back into the crater, leaving behind a ring of glowing clouds. For a brief moment, the peak of Paektu shimmered like molten metal, then cooled, silent and still. We didn't speak again until we crossed the border. They took us to a quarantine facility outside Vladivostok, a Soviet-era bunker that smelled of mold and metal. Men in hazmat suits met us at the helipad and separated me from Cho immediately. That was the last time I saw him. Hours passed. No one spoke English. No one explained anything. Eventually, they left me in a room with a single bulb and a camera in the corner. Then the door opened. A man in a gray coat entered, holding a folder stamped with both CIA and ROK intelligence insignias. His expression was unreadable. "Agent Walker," he said in perfect English, "you've been off-grid for 74 hours. You're lucky to be alive." I said nothing. He placed the folder on the table and opened it. Inside were a series of satellite images, thermal scans, magnetic meetings, seismic charts, each one centered on Mount Paektu. But they weren't from North Korea. They were from all over the world. Volcanic sites, magnetic poles, deep ocean trenches, all showing the same anomaly, a synchronized 3-pulse signature. "Your little discovery," he said dryly, "has gone global. The same frequency is being picked up in Iceland, Kamchatka, Yellowstone, even under the Mariana Trench. Whatever woke up under that mountain, it's not staying there." I stared at the photos, my chest tightening. How is that possible? He closed the folder. "You tell me." Before I could answer, the lights flickered. The bulb overhead dimmed, then pulsed 3 times. The agent froze. We both heard it, faint but distinct, the same heartbeat hum echoing through the metal walls. He grabbed his radio. "Control, confirm power fluctuation." Static. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 more. The sound grew louder, vibrating through the floor. Somewhere above us, alarms began to blare. Then came shouting, muffled at first, then clearer. "Shut it down! Cut the feed!" The man looked back at me, eyes wide. "It's coming through the grid." "What grid?" I asked. "All of them," he said. "Power lines, radio towers, satellite relays, anything that carries a signal. It's using our own infrastructure to spread." He reached for the folder, but stopped when the light bulb above us exploded, showering glass across the table.
The hum filled the room completely now, no longer just sound, pressure forcing its way into my skull. The walls trembled, monitors on the far side flickered with lines of corrupted data. Synchronization sequence active, source unknown, frequency 7.83 Hz, amplifying. I pressed my hands against my ears, but it didn't help. The noise wasn't in the air anymore. It was inside me, inside everything. The agent stumbled toward the door. "We need to leave, now!" He yanked it open and froze. Beyond him, the corridor was filled with light, not blinding, but alive. It rippled across the metal like a film of water, reflecting strange geometric shadows that didn't match the angles of the room. Then came the whisper. Not a voice, a memory, a presence. "It remembers us." The same words that had echoed in my mind beneath the mountain. I don't remember running. I don't remember the alarms or the soldiers shouting. Only the cold wind hitting my face when I finally burst out into the night. Above the facility, the sky was alive with auroras, ribbons of light stretching from horizon to horizon, pulsing in time with the same heartbeat. 3 pulses, pause, 3 pulses. Only now they weren't confined to the radio. It was coming from below us. The entire planet was resonating.
2 days after the broadcast, the world began to fracture. At first, it was just interference. Communication satellites started failing one by one, each reporting a surge at exactly 7.83 Hz, the same frequency as the Earth's natural Schumann resonance, the frequency the heartbeat had adopted. Then came the dreams. Pilots, miners, submarine crews, anyone working deep underground or high in the air started reporting identical nightmares. A vast structure beneath the crust, glowing faintly, shifting like something trying to turn over in its sleep. Some described hearing the pulse before waking. Others never woke at all. By day 3, the anomalies spread to every continent. Seismic monitors showed global tremors, not earthquakes, but rhythmic vibrations circling the planet like sound waves. Every 12 hours, the same pattern repeated. 3 pulses, pause, 3 pulses. Governments tried to suppress it. North Korea went completely silent. Russia sealed its airspace. The US declared DEFCON 2, but never explained why. Even the Vatican made a statement, not scientific, but pleading. Something ancient is stirring beneath creation. And me? I was still trapped in that bunker in Vladivostok, surrounded by people who no longer looked at me like an agent, but like a patient. Every test they ran came back wrong. My body temperature was stable, but my heart rate matched the global frequency exactly, 7.83 beats per second. They thought it was impossible. I didn't argue. That night, I found Dr. Cho again. He was in an isolation cell, wrapped in blankets, whispering equations across the floor with chalk. When he saw me through the glass, he smiled faintly. "It's not spreading, it's connecting." "Connecting what?" He pointed upward, toward the concrete ceiling. "Us." Before I could reply, the power flickered. Then the alarms blared again. We ran to the command room, or what was left of it. The monitor showed seismic waves converging from across the globe, all pointing to one location, Mount Paektu.
But the feed from the satellite showed something new. The snow around the volcano had melted completely, revealing a massive spiral pattern burned into the earth, kilometers wide, glowing faintly in infrared. Dr. Cho leaned closer. It's not a crater anymore, it's an antenna. On another monitor, global communications began collapsing in real time. Not just interference, but conversion. Every radio, television, and cell frequency began transmitting the same signal, the 3-pulse rhythm. News anchors froze mid-sentence. Control towers lost contact. Entire networks began repeating one phrase over and over in every language. It remembers us. By dawn, cities began to panic. In Seoul, people claimed to see shadows beneath the streets, moving shapes reflected in puddles that didn't match the people above them. In Siberia, miners heard voices through the rock calling them by name. In Los Angeles, the Pacific began to glow faintly at night, mirroring the pulse of the mountain half a world away. It wasn't chaos yet, not war, just fear, the kind that sits heavy in the air when the rules of the world stop making sense. Then came the stillness. For exactly 3 minutes, every electrical device on the planet shut down. Planes drifted silently through the sky. Cities went dark. Oceans went flat. And in that silence, we all heard it, not through machines, not through radios, but through the ground, the heartbeat. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 pulses. When the power came back, half the satellites were offline. The others transmitted one final image before dying. The spiral around Mount Paektu expanding outward, forming identical rings across the planet's surface, along tectonic lines, volcanoes, trenches, deserts. It wasn't spreading randomly. It was activating a pattern. By now, the facility was falling apart. Command had fled. Only a handful of us remained. Scientists, soldiers, and me, the spy who'd seen it first. Dr. Cho sat beside a broken monitor, his eyes distant. "It's not trying to destroy us," he murmured. "It's reorganizing the planet. We were never the signal's target. We're just in the way." "Then what's the target?" I asked. He looked up at me, and for the first time I saw genuine awe in his face. The earth itself. Outside, the ground rumbled, a low, constant vibration like a sleeping giant shifting beneath the crust. Suddenly, the radio on the desk crackled, a voice, faint, robotic, breaking through static. "All stations, emergency global synchronization." Then silence. The last words before the line died were whispered, barely audible. "It's using us to finish what it started." The lights flickered again. This time, they didn't come back on. Through the narrow bunker window, I saw the night sky ignite, bands of light weaving across the horizon like veins of molten color. The aurora wasn't just in the north anymore. It was everywhere, painting the entire planet in ghostly white. And beneath it all, the same steady pulse continued, the heartbeat of the thing beneath Mount Paektu, now echoing through every mountain, every ocean, every living cell. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 pulses. The world wasn't trembling anymore. It was breathing. When dawn finally broke, it wasn't sunlight that touched the world. It was the pulse. The air shimmered faintly, as if reality itself was vibrating. In the eastern sky, the horizon bled white, not from light, but from resonance. Trees stood unnaturally still. Rivers rippled backward. Every compass spun uselessly in my hand. The mountain was awake. Satellite images, the few that still transmitted, showed Mount Paektu split open like a vast stone flower, each ridge unfurling outward in symmetrical precision. But what emerged from the crater wasn't lava, it was structure. An impossible geometry, rising higher with every pulse. Crystalline spires interlocking like an organism made of metal and light. The mountain wasn't a volcano anymore. It was a transmitter. Dr. Cho watched with hollow eyes. "It's rebuilding the surface," he whispered. "That shape, it's not natural, it's language." "What language?" I asked, though part of me already knew. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. Because I could feel it too, deep in my bones, vibrating through every atom. The same rhythm I'd felt since the cave. We weren't just observing the signal anymore. We were inside it. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt strange now. The pulse blurred everything into one long breath. The soldiers who remained began collapsing, eyes rolling back, veins glowing faintly blue. Some started speaking in tones that didn't belong to any human mouth, harmonic, resonant, in perfect synchrony. Dr. Cho's voice trembled. "They're harmonizing. It's changing their frequencies. They're becoming part of it." I felt it pulling at me too, not violently, but gently, like a tide coaxing me deeper. Outside, the air had texture now, rippling like fabric in slow motion. Snow lifted from the ground and hung suspended mid-air, each flake glowing faintly with the same bluish hue as the mountain. The entire landscape had become an orchestra of motionless vibration. And beneath it all, that voice again, the one I'd first heard through the floorboards weeks ago, clearer now, impossibly vast. "You were built to remember." My knees buckled. The words weren't sound. They were understanding, injected directly into thought. "We dreamed within you. Now you awaken us." Dr. Cho fell to the floor, clutching his head. "It's communicating," he gasped. "Not to us, through us." The walls began to bend outward as if breathing. Screens flickered to life one last time, showing the global resonance pattern. The rings had stopped expanding. They'd locked into perfect alignment, one pulse reaching every corner of the planet simultaneously. Then, silence. For the first time in weeks, the pulse ceased. And in that stillness, the world exhaled. Snow began to fall again, but each flake shimmered like metal dust. The lights in the sky faded. The humming stopped. We thought it was over, until we saw the shadows move. All across the landscape, human silhouettes began rising from the snow. Not bodies, not ghosts, but echoes. Each figure stood perfectly still, facing Mount Paektu. The mountain glowed faintly in response, like they were mirrors reflecting a single mind. Dr. Cho stared at them in awe.
"They're not dying," he whispered. "They're synchronizing completely." I turned to him. "With what?" He smiled faintly, tears streaking his face. "With whatever made us." Then he walked outside, slowly, calmly, as if answering a call only he could hear. When he reached the others, he didn't fall or freeze. He just dissolved. His outline blurred, body breaking into light particles that drifted upward, vanishing into the white sky. I screamed his name, but no sound came out. My voice was gone. I could feel the pull again, stronger now. Inside my chest, the pulse returned. 3 beats, pause, 3 beats. My heartbeat wasn't my own anymore. I stumbled to the console and tried to send one last message, an encoded burst aimed at anyone still listening. My hands shook as I typed. They were here before us. We were the experiment. The signal was a memory, not a warning. Static filled the screen. Then a faint return signal. Someone or something was still listening. Acknowledged. I froze. Who is this? The mountain. The bunker walls cracked. The ground beneath me glowed like molten glass. I ran toward the exit tunnel, light flooding every corner behind me. The air vibrated until it became pure sound, not thunder, not explosion, but a single note stretching across the world. As I reached the surface, I saw the mountain, no longer a mountain, but a radiant, breathing form of crystalline light, stretching upward into the clouds. The figures of people, millions of them, were rising with it, dissolving into the structure like pieces returning to their source. The pulse reached its final crescendo, and then silence again. When I opened my eyes, I was standing alone on the rim of the crater. The sky was empty. The mountain was gone. No snow, no ruins, just a vast circle of glass stretching to the horizon. The radio on my shoulder crackled faintly. "Agent Rains, do you copy?" It was a voice I didn't recognize, calm, human. The synchronization was successful. Welcome home. The transmission ended. And for the first time since Mount Paektu awakened, I realized something chilling. The world hadn't ended. It had begun again.